Welcome to Autism Knows No Borders, a podcast where people connected to autism inspire change and build community. Together with the Global Autism Project, I'm your host, Rachel Harmon, a professional with over a decade of experience in the field of autism services, outreach, and advocacy. What's it like to raise a daughter who's autistic? If you're curious about the experience from a father's perspective, you'll want to listen to this episode with Russell Allen. Russell is an American singer best known as the vocalist of Symphony X, a band which is universally considered one of the top-tier progressive metal acts in the world. He's also one of the main vocalists in the Trans-Siberian Orchestra and has collaborated with numerous metal supergroups of international acclaim. Russell recently released an acoustic song titled Love Her Like I Do, about his autistic daughter, Ava. This episode is part one of our conversation, and we discuss what it was like for Russell to receive his daughter's autism diagnosis, Ava's interests and talents, the importance of early intervention when it comes to autism services, controversies around labels like, quote, high functioning and, quote, low functioning, and future plans for Ava's independence as an autistic adult. In this episode, discover what's possible when you see the glass half full. And now I present you Russell Allen.
Hi, my name is Russell Allen. I'm an artist, musician in the rock metal world, and I am blessed with a beautiful daughter named Ava, who's 17 and is on the autistic spectrum. I started this journey, obviously, at that time, but I've been in the music world for over 30 years, and now I've released a new song called Love Her Like I Do. And it's kind of not in the realm of what I normally do, but I feel the message needs to reach as many people as possible. So I did it in the style that is an acoustic format that I hope really, hits the ears of a lot of people in the world, bring awareness to autism, and also to help relate to the parents and the people with autism that live with this on a daily basis. So.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful song. We'll get more into the details of the creative process and, the public kind of reaction later on in the conversation. But I just wanted to start with kind of going back in time and talking about your family and what it was like when you received the diagnosis. How old was Ava when that happened?
I want to say she was about 13 months, maybe a little older than that, year and a half, somewhere around there.
Okay. And what was that like for you? Did you know about autism at that time?
No, no. My wife did. She was in education. She was a teacher for about 25 or plus years and stuff. And so she was aware of this type of things. And because there's, what they call LDs or learning disabled people, which she actually went into doing after this whole thing with Ava. So she knew that something was up. She kind of knew the signs to look for. I feel like mothers are better equipped for all this. They can sense what's going on with their children a little more than I think we can as fathers. But that's just my own personal experience. So she knew something was up. So we took her to get evaluated. At first, I was, wouldn't say I was in denial, but yeah, I was definitely like, come on, she's just, she's not looking at you, not saying because she's just developing differently or whatever. You try and make excuses, I guess, for what is not normal as normal, if that makes sense. And that's what I
Yeah.
was kind of doing. And so it came to the point where she, was really insistent. And I said, okay, because, she knows better than me. And so luckily, put the ego aside and did what my wife said was a good thing to do. And I'm so glad that we did. We did get the diagnosis. And at first it was, it's a gut punch. It's just like, wow, this is real. This is going on. And it's something that we're going to have to face as a family. So it was very shocking in the beginning, I think, as everybody who lives through this knows. And then the work really began.
Mm-hmm. So what did it take for you to finally accept her autism? Was it a process over years or did something happen?
No, it was accept her as I've always accepted her, so it doesn't really matter if she has autism or not. For me, it's like, I love her, it's
Yeah.
like the song says, I love her. I wish everyone did like I do, she's amazing. I just felt like, okay, this is what it is. And I don't know, I'm a kind of a get to it kind of a guy, it's like, all right, well, this is the task at hand. Let's move forward. Let's start working to fix it. And that's kind of like, fixing it is not an easy thing to do. It's not like you're just, going to hammer a couple of nails into it and it's going to all stick together and work great. This is a ongoing process and ongoing things where, the difficult challenges that we face was dealing with different, I wouldn't say diagnoses, but different phases of this. Oh, at first it was this, part of the spectrum she was on. Now it looks like maybe it's Asperger's, and then we're just chasing our tail with some of this stuff, and so it's psychosomatic stuff, that she's been kind of doing lately and all this other stuff, and that's probably the most difficult part. But I always accepted that she was on the spectrum, or as soon as I found out, I was like, okay. I didn't look at it like, as a bad thing. I think my wife is a little more doom and gloom by nature. She's the pessimist, I'm the optimist. But together, I think we make a good team. Opposites attract, whatever they say. But yeah, she's the glass is half empty, I'm the glass is half full guy. So we've been able to sort of like work together to kind of say, hey, there's a lot of great things that she's going to have because of her being on the spectrum. And, she's got the hyper intelligence thing. It's just amazing to me. Her vocabulary, her understanding of the English language. And now she's very functional. In the beginning, she was not highly functional. She was moderately functional, didn't really talk. And it was scary in the beginning. Then we started the early intervention and then we started really seeing some results there. But in the beginning, it was scary. But I always said, well, there's all those good things that could happen for her. I mean, I would bring up examples like I think Albert Einstein was on the spectrum
Yeah.
and modern day like Elon Musk, love or hate the guy, whatever, but he's a genius. I mean, the guy's definitely on the spectrum. He talks about it. He's had a rough go at school. Didn't have a good social experience and all these things that my kid's dealing with, now. And so I just look at it as inspirational and I just joke with my daughter all the time and say, Ava, don't worry about trying to, be everybody's friends. Because as I said, like one day they're all going to work for you. So don't worry about it. I feel like you know, thinking
Yeah.
of the Musk scenario. I mean,
Right.
just trying to stay positive and trying to say like, hey, don't you look at this as a disability or a disadvantage. There's a hyper advantage here if you can learn to cope and navigate through the social constructs of society. That's really the trick, right?
Yeah.
Then you have a massive advantage, I feel, over a lot of the population. I mean, and now with the surgence of AI, I mean, these people on the spectrum might be the most comparable things we have in human intelligence that can even compete with the future of machines. So they could be the saviors of us all. So again, this is my optimism,
Hmm.
shining, but that's how I feel. It's like I feel like there's a lot of good.
Yeah. And when you stay optimistic and don't put limitations on people, then it really gives them space to find their own strengths. And, as practitioners or as parents, it's really important to build on those strengths. So tell us about some of her interests and what she's like now.
Well, she gets hyper fixated on creating this sort of world in her head, that's it's her own social construct. She's created, they call it like a head canon, or like, like you would say a Star Wars canon. Like she's creates, and it usually is out of things that she's interested in. Like right now it's storms, loves hurricanes, all the names, but she'll put a personality to each of them and how they interact. And I don't know what the exact terminology is of that psychosomatic thing where, she's like projecting her view of society or social, interaction. Well, and they're very deep. She'll go into write stories. She'll use her power of the English language and tell these stories about these characters that she's made out of these storms, because they all have names, right? And she kind of gravitates to that kind of stuff and she just dives deep on it. But the cool thing is that it's not just, oh, Storm Alicia is mad at Storm, Veronica today or whatever. It's she'll go into the meteorology and she'll study and know so much about the topic of meteorology. It's like, that's the study of weather, I think, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
And That's the amazing thing. It's not just she creates a thing because of the names. She goes into she understands when the season's coming up. She understands when the storms are strongest, when they're not. She uses all that information she intakes and she applies it in all different ways. And it's actually helped her a lot in school because there was a while there where the elements were all her world, it's all so she memorized every element on the elemental table by, you could just give her a number. It's kind of like that Rain Man
Yeah.
thing, where she could sit there and just rifle back to you, iridium and all these names I can't even pronounce in a heartbeat. And she even knows the ones that aren't even found yet. Like that's beyond the table numbers that we see on the chart. She knows it's just, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
it's a little OCD, I guess. But again, I always see the upside. It's like, "Hey, Ava, 32," and she'll spit it out when we're hanging out somewhere, and everyone's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that's so impressive,"
Yeah.
It's a parlor trick, in a way, but it is a cool social thing, people are impressed with intelligence,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
they gravitate toward it, as long as you're not, arrogant about it or showing off or whatever, but it's like, "Hey, she could do this, and I'm proud of it," But so those are the kind of things that she's into now. But it'll change. I don't know what's coming next. She does like to write stories and stuff about these characters she creates. She's been getting into using apps to help create storyboards and like slideshows, things like that she uses in school. But she's really able to step into a very technical sort of world on the computer and just own it in a matter of like a week. It's just impressive how much retention she has. Like she will study something, dive into it, and like I said, this computer, slideshow thing she's using right now, she's all about it. And I don't even know where to start with it. It's like, and I got a pretty good setup. I built all this. I'm a computer guy, and I don't even know if I can even start where she's at. It'd take me a year to catch up to her. That's what's so impressive about it.
Well, that's amazing that she's found something that she can feel good about too, and that piques her interest. Hey, Rachel here. Are you enjoying this episode? Want to hear more valuable content from others you can relate with? Be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you can stay up to date on future episodes. And now back to the conversation. You mentioned, Russell, that she received earlier intervention growing up.
Yeah.
So tell us about those services.
Well, after she was diagnosed, we are very fortunate here in New Jersey where we live to have such a robust support system with educators and occupational therapists, speech therapists. So we had started a pretty robust regimen, about 25 hours a week, 5 hours a day, right after her diagnosis. And that was for years, about, I would say, 3 years almost, three and a half, maybe more. And it was intense. They don't I guess they still are trying to tackle the issue of what causes this in people, but they certainly have found some really inventive ways of treating it, at least in this early stage. She went from nonverbal whatever to talking and eye contact. It all started with these, you're not allowed to like be in the room with the instructor. So, she would be in the family room and I'd be sitting in the kitchen when they would come, because I was the one that was home. Because when I'm not on tour, I was home, all the
Yeah.
time, caring for her, and it was my wife was doing the teaching thing, so it was tough sometimes because she'd be down there crying, and I want to go down there and see what's going on. They're like, "Don't come down here," because they're forcing her to do things physically. Like one of the things I got to see was she was standing on like an exercise ball, one of those like bounce, you do sit ups on it, or it's a big exercise ball with a weighted bottom. Like I guess there's sand in it or something.
Hmm.
And she's standing on it, balancing herself and having to like grab rings of different colors and put them on rods of another color on the other side. So basically they're forcing her core along her spinal column to develop really, really early. And they were saying that this forces these neurological connections throughout the spinal cord brain nervous system. And that supposedly helps to bridge some of these gaps,
Hmm.
and it was amazing, and it was working. So we started to see results. It took a while, like about a year, but that was just some of the things they were doing. They were doing the sensory stuff where they'd have her in the tent, because they feel, like, kinda safe, and they just kept working with her in all these different things, and, I can't stress enough how important that is. If you're able to get that diagnosis early, don't even wait as long as we did, as quick as you can,
Mhm.
because we've been fortunate to see great results, and we did have a great support structure here, so that's kinda how that journey went.
Is she getting any support now?
Well, yeah, she has what they call an IEP in school, and she has,
Just so for our listeners who don't know, an IEP is an individualized education plan.
thank you, yeah.
Yeah.
I know the acronyms, but, thank you. My wife would be here like, "That's what that's don't tell them that, it's this." I'm sorry. It's not that you don't have to necessarily be on the spectrum to have that. Other kids just maybe they have they're slow learners or they're with math or reading they could have the same thing. But generally speaking, to your point, that's what they have. And with that, there's that evaluation of what she needs in a support setting. Sometimes, for example, like with PE, for example, it's not really great for her. It's a very high stress, very loud, all kind of stuff. So we are able through that process to get her into a study hall sort of a thing and still get her PE credits. And the school will work with you to help acclimate because they want you to mainstream them as much as possible. I mean, that's the whole goal. What they
Mhm.
mean by mainstreaming is being in a regular school, not being in an autistic specific school or a school specific to those people. Some cases, obviously, that might be a better option for folks, but for us, because of Ava's high functionality, we really were I wouldn't say pushing for that, but we're really hopeful that it would work out. And so far, it hasn't been easy socially for her. It's been a nightmare. That's what,
Yeah.
you hear it in the song and what I talk about. And it's heartbreaking for us, like she just still has not made that kind of friend in her life. She's doing better though. She's talking to people, she's maturing, which is nice. But she'll have these things with that IEP that we talked about where she'll get special maybe extra time to do certain things like testing or things like this,
Mhm.
based on whatever is going on. Like she was out of school for a while, and I'll tell you a little dark side of this. We were trying to find the right medication for her to help her sort of stabilize her anxiety, and we had a terrible side effect of. I don't want to scare people, but it was the truth, and that of ticks, vocal ticks, where she was like, yeah, yeah, making these, sounded like The Exorcist or something. It was very frightening.
Mm.
And so we quickly got her off that, but she was out of school for a few months because with these heavy psychotic medications, it takes a while for them to take effect and it takes a while for them to get out of your system. It's not like taking a Tylenol or an aspirin or something and it works for that time and it's gone. So we did have some challenges navigating that. Now she's back in school, but I bring it up only because the school's very, very graceful and saying, okay, well, we're going to give her chances to make up all that work and do whatever she's gotta do, and so she's in the process of doing that now
Okay.
because that's where she kinda is, but she's doing good, and, we seem to have found a good place for her right now, but it never ends. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just the next challenge, and so that's where we're kinda at with her.
Do you have a plan for after she graduates high school?
We've been talking about it, but, she's more than capable of getting an entry exam or getting an entry to a university anywhere she wants to go, in my honest opinion. But I feel like it's probably best for her if she stays close to home locally, maybe a state university that's close to us. I don't see her yet anyway, kind of being able to live on her own, but we're hopeful. But, look, in our state, you can't drive until you're 17. She's already the driving age, but she's had so many challenges. We haven't even got her through driver's ed yet. So that's the next thing. That's like another heart attack on a plate waiting for to
Yeah.
happen for any parent.
Right.
Yeah, so that's where we're at, and, we have a son as well, and he's right behind her, but he's doing really well, and he's, gonna be driving soon too, so it's like, "Oh god." So, double whammy.
Right.
I'm more worried about him than her, to be honest. My wife's the opposite. "Oh, what if she, starts stimming while she's driving?" I'm like, "Chris, when I'm in the truck and Ava's with me, if I look at my phone, she's like, 'Dad, put your phone down. You're driving.'" Like, she's so militant
Right.
about it.
Yeah.
And 'cause it's that whole there's no gray with them, like, I don't mean to generalize them, but, with autistic people I've interacted with, it's black or white, and they don't sugarcoat
Mhm.
anything, you get the honesty, even if you don't like it.
And they like to follow rules
Yeah, structure.
and do the right thing.
Yes, yes, they're very structured in that sense,
Mhm.
and their moral compass is pretty good, better
Yeah.
than most, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just wanted to touch on something that you mentioned, Russell, 'cause, um, you've been saying that she's high functioning, and while I understand what you mean because she's able to hold a conversation and she does well in school, there is a bit of controversy with that terminology. I'm not sure if you're aware,
Mm,
but there have been some
no.
autistic adults who have come on this podcast, and they've talked about how using terms like high functioning or low functioning doesn't really give the big picture of the autistic experience, and that someone who is, quote, high functioning might have a lot of internal struggles because on the outside they appear, quote, normal. And when people meet them, they're expected to behave or speak in a certain way. And then when they don't, people get weirded out because they're like, well, this is not, you're not like what I thought you would be.
Mhm,
And so that causes a lot of anxiety and some depression. And that's where you get a lot of the social recluse, like them not feeling like they have any friends or that they can fit in. And so it actually just diminishes their needs because even though they're able to maybe even live independently, they still might need a lot of support in other ways. And then on the other side, if someone is said to be low functioning, it diminishes their strengths, right? Because you see that maybe they need a lot of support, maybe they're nonverbal, maybe they have a low IQ, but maybe they're, I don't know, great at running marathons or like whatever it is that is
mm.
specific to them. And so it kind of like puts people in boxes. So I just wanted to touch on that.
I understand. Everything you said about the high functioning thing with and they still having the disadvantages of the social. That's exactly what I've been explaining this whole time. That's what she's dealing with.
Yeah,
I get that. Listen, I mean no offense to any. I'm not trying to put anybody in a box. This is just the medical terms that we deal with. That what we're being told as parents, and so however society's shifting. I'm just a singer in a rock and roll band. I'm not trying to
I
keep up with
understand.
everybody's thing. So I don't mean any disrespect. It's just that that's when I say that word high functioning. To me, it's from the actual medical scientific term of this person can has auditory ability like that. That's
Exactly.
all kind of my mind looks like. I don't really it's unfortunate that people want to label people, but I mean, I guess I should know better. My goodness, I live in the world of labels. I mean, record labels, and
Yeah.
genre labels. Are you this type of? That's the whole thing with this song is because I'm a metal guy, and I put out this sort of acoustic,
Hmm.
almost folk, rocks kind of a song, whatever. That's not, and everyone's like, "Wow, what is this?" And they're all taken aback. It's like, hey man, I wrote a song about my kid that's like, so I understand. My people might feel sensitive to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and sometimes, the in what from what I've learned, especially from doing this podcast, because I wasn't aware before, there's a lot of terminology out there that is controversial, like whether you say autistic person or person with autism. That one's a bit old. I think maybe people have moved on from that debate and just maybe accepted that, people can just identify with how they want to identify.
Yeah, well, that's what it was before all this came along. I mean, my wife constantly tells me, "Oh, you're definitely on the spectrum." Like she'll just, you know, and I probably was or is or whatever. When I was young, I didn't really make a lot of eye contact with people. And my wife was when we were dating. She's like, "Why do you never look at me when I talk to you?" I'm like, "I don't know, because I don't, but I'm listening to you." But like, yeah, my attention span, ADHD, we didn't have that stuff back in the '70s either. We didn't have anything. So there's something to be said for, hey, it's great we have all this advancement and things like that. But to your point, now it seems like it's like, oh, this stereotyping and these categories and this labeling, that's actually worse.
Mm,
So it would be nice for people to go back, not to the old ways of everything, but like to just accept somebody who for who they are, if they're a little different or whatever, without all these tags that everybody has to have. So I would love to see that. It would help our daughter out immensely, I think, and everybody.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm more worried about the professional world as a parent. I want her to be able to be a part of the workforce and have a great career in something that she's passionate about, like any parent would for their kid. But I do worry about, like you said, these things because there are definitely things that'll be on her record, so to speak, throughout her education and her life because she has had all these treatments and she has had all this stuff, and that's all on record for people, to see. And I don't know the rules of the road these days, what it takes to get a job, but I mean, I'm sure companies look at all that stuff, when they're trying to make a decision on hiring. I just hope that that's not going to be a detriment to her, and hopefully some employers would see it as a plus. I certainly would.
So just to maybe if this will help you feel better, people don't usually look at that stuff.
Okay.
It would actually be up to the person, the autistic person, to disclose
Disclose. Okay.
whether they want to or not. And sometimes it's relevant and sometimes it's not. But the advantage, I think, for Ava as she grows into a young adult and she starts to enter the workforce is to really develop her self-advocacy skills, which I'm sure you guys have been doing as parents already. But then she can then turn to her employer and be like, hey, I need these accommodations or modifications at work. For example, put things in writing for me. Or if it's in an office, dim the lights. These are some of the common accommodations that autistic people on the podcast have asked for.
Okay.
So they're not going to look at her medical history.
Yeah. This is, I definitely am happy to get the advice because we're at that phase in a few years where we'll be crossing that boundary into her adult life, and it's good to have a sense of what that is. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really think, again, I always look at everything a little, I guess, from a chess player, engineering standpoint, and I'm always looking to the future, like, okay, what could be the possible, paths here, and I'm always analyzing. I guess that's kind of how I'm wired, but so it is nice to know that she doesn't have to disclose that stuff. It all depends, I guess, on what she's going for,
Hmm.
we're not even there yet. So, but
Yeah.
again, I'm very optimistic. Like I said, I've seen so much success of people on the spectrum at high levels, and I think society as a whole needs to be more accepting and more open to this because there's some brilliant people
Hmm.
out
Yeah.
there that are on the spectrum, and these social hangups shouldn't be such a burden to anybody, but I understand how it is.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the work of the advocates and, this podcast and your song,
Yeah.
which I think this is a good transition to talk about that. But just bringing more awareness into the autistic lived experience so that people can be more compassionate, that coworkers with an autistic colleague will understand what they're going through. So we're doing the work, and I think
Yeah.
you having this massive platform and using your voice literally to spread this message is so important. So let's talk about your song, Love Her Like I Do. Thanks for tuning in to Autism Knows No Borders. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and come back next Thursday for part 2 of my conversation with Russell Allen, where he talks about the creative process behind his song, Love Her Like I Do. Thanks for listening. Take care.